There's a form sitting in a filing cabinet at a Social Security office right now that could put $400 a month back in your pocket, and nobody at that office is going to call you and tell you it exists. That's not a conspiracy, it's just how the system works. Social Security doesn't audit your file to see what you're missing. It processes exactly what you apply for and not $1 more. So if you never filled out a specific form for a specific benefit, that benefit just sits there unclaimed year after year, and you genuinely never know unless someone told you to go look. That's what this video is. I'm going to walk you through the 4 benefit categories that get missed the most by people 60 and older, the exact form number for each one, and the real reason smart, careful people end up skipping them. Stick with me to the end, because the last one is the one that surprises people the most, and it might be sitting in your file right now. Before we get into the forms, I want to explain why this happens at all, because once you understand the mechanism, the rest of this makes a lot more sense. Social Security benefits are organized by category under the Social Security Act. Retirement benefits are one category. Spousal benefits are a separate category. Survivor benefits are a separate category. Supplemental Security Income is a completely separate federal program. Each one of those categories requires its own written application. Filing for one does not automatically trigger the others, even if you clearly qualify for more than one at the same time. When you apply for retirement online or over the phone, the system walks you through the retirement application. It does not stop and ask, hey, are you also entitled to a spousal benefit based on your husband's earnings record? That question is on you to ask, or on a knowledgeable representative to raise, and a lot of the time, nobody raises it. So the gap isn't fraud, and it isn't carelessness on your part. It's a structural gap between what you're legally entitled to and what you actually filed for. Let's go through where that gap shows up most often. The first one is the spousal benefit. If you're married, or even if you were married for at least 10 years and are now divorced, you may be entitled to up to 50% of your spouse's or ex-spouse's benefit amount based on their earnings record, not yours. This matters most if you spent years as a caregiver, worked part-time, or had lower lifetime earnings than your spouse. Your own benefit might be modest, but the spousal benefit calculated off their record could be significantly higher. The form for this is the SSA-2, the Application for Spouses Benefits. Here's the part that trips people up when you apply for retirement through the SSA's online portal. It defaults you into your own retirement application. It doesn't automatically surface the SSA-2 as an option. So plenty of people who worked at least a little end up collecting only their own benefit, never realizing the spousal benefit off their partner's record might have paid more. If you're in that situation, it's worth asking Social Security directly for a comparison of both numbers before you assume you're already getting the higher one. The second one is the survivor benefit, and this is the one I'd call genuinely urgent if it applies to you. If your spouse has passed away, you may be entitled to up to 100% of their benefit amount, not 50% like the spousal benefit, the full amount. The form for this is the SS-10, Application for Widows or Widowers Benefits, and it is a completely separate filing from your retirement application. A lot of widows and widowers already collecting their own retirement benefit have no idea they could switch to a survivor benefit that pays substantially more, because nobody automatically compares the two numbers for you. Here's an example of how this plays out. And I want to be upfront that this is a composite based on patterns benefits counselors see regularly, not a specific real person. A woman retires at 63 on her own record and starts collecting around $1,000 a month. Her husband, who had a stronger earnings history, passes away a few years later. His benefit was over $2,000 a month. If she never files the SS-10, she keeps collecting her smaller retirement benefit indefinitely, even though she likely qualifies for the much larger survivor benefit. Nothing forces the switch. She has to ask for it on the correct form. And here's the timing piece that matters. Social Security's retroactive payments on survivor and spousal benefits are generally capped at 6 months before your application date. So this isn't something to sit on indefinitely. If you're widowed and you haven't specifically compared your current benefit against a potential survivor benefit, that comparison is worth requesting soon, not eventually. The third one is a little different because there's no separate form involved, but there's a decision most people don't fully understand when they make it. This is about when you claim relative to your full retirement age. For every month you delay claiming past full retirement age up to age 70, your eventual benefit grows by roughly 0.2% per month, which works out to about 8% a year. That's a real guaranteed increase. And a lot of people claim at 62 by default. Sometimes because they need the income right away, sometimes just because that's the age they always assumed you're supposed to file. Either reason can be completely valid depending on your situation. But if you filed early, took the reduced benefit, and within 12 months start having second thoughts, there's a form called the SSA-521 Request for Withdrawal of Application that lets you undo that filing and effectively restart later at a higher rate. That window is only 12 months from your original filing date. Past that, the option closes. So if you filed for retirement in roughly the last year and you're not sure it was the right call, that's worth looking into soon, because the door on fixing it doesn't stay open forever. The fourth one is Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, and this one gets missed constantly because people confuse it with regular Social Security retirement. SSI is a completely separate federal program under Title 16 of the Social Security Act, and it's based on having limited income and limited resources, not on your work history. You can actually receive both your Social Security retirement benefit and SI at the same time if you meet the income and asset limits. The form is the SSA-8000. The reason this gets missed is simple. The person taking your retirement application isn't necessarily screening you for SI eligibility unless you bring it up yourself. If your household income is limited and nobody has ever specifically asked you about SSI, it's worth asking about directly rather than assuming you'd have been told if you qualified. Now, there's a timing rule that ties all of this together, and it's worth understanding clearly instead of being afraid of most of these retroactive payments. When you're switching to spousal or survivor benefit, you should have been getting are capped at 6 months back from your application date. SSI doesn't have a retroactive component at all. It pays from the month you apply, period. That means the practical lesson here isn't panic. It's don't put this off indefinitely. If any of these categories might apply to you, the earlier you ask, the more of what you're owed you actually recover. There's also one more narrow provision worth mentioning under the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015, a strategy called the Restricted Application, which lets someone file on only for a spousal benefit while letting their own retirement benefit continue growing, was phased out for most people. But if you were born before January 2nd, 1954, you may still be eligible for a version of that strategy, and it's specific enough that it's worth asking Social Security about directly if that birth date applies to you. So here's what I'd actually do if I were in your position in order. First, call Social Security or set up an appointment at your local field office and ask them directly for a complete review of what benefits are currently applied to your record versus what you might be eligible for that hasn't been filed. Second, bring documentation with you, your Social Security card, a recent benefit statement, your marriage or certificate if a spousal or survivor benefit could apply, and a death certificate if you're a widow or widower. Missing documents are the single most common reason these reviews get delayed. Third, if you're widowed, specifically ask for a written comparison between your current benefit and what the survivor benefit under the SS-10 would pay. Don't just take a verbal answer. Ask for the numbers in writing. Fourth, if your income is limited, ask specifically about SI and the SSA-8000, because that's not something that gets raised automatically. And fifth, if you filed for retirement within about the last year and you're second. Guessing the timing? Ask about the SSA-521 withdrawal option before that 12-month window closes. I want to end on something simple because I think it's the most useful way to think about all of this. Social Security isn't hiding your money from you out of malice. It's a program that processes applications. It's not intentions. It pays out what you formally ask for on the correct form and nothing more. That means the responsibility, unfairly or not, sits with you to ask the right questions. The 4 forms we covered today: the SSA-2 for spousal benefits, the SS-10 for survivor benefits, the SSA-521 to correct an early filing, and the SSA-8000 for supplemental income, cover the vast majority of cases where people are leaving money they've genuinely earned or are entitled to sitting unclaimed. You don't need to overhaul your entire retirement plan to check this. You just need one phone call and a short list of specific questions to ask. If this helped you figure out where to start, share it with someone in your life who's on Social Security and might be in the same spot, because odds are they've never heard any of this either.